Okay, so for this learning activity that we're going to do as part of your SMART Balance test, there are some key concepts and topics that we want to make sure that you have before you walk into the test. One is that both poetry and prose can deal with similar subject matter. Okay? We want you to be able to understand that one way that poetry differs from prose is its use of language. Poetry employs a number of techniques, including imagery, rhythm, and material structure in order to achieve its effects. Poetry uses these techniques in order to contribute to an overall purpose, which is usually, or sometimes, different than the purpose of works written in prose. We know that this activity is just going to be about exploring the differences between poetry and prose. That's really all it's going to be. So let's get a few definitions. One of the best definitions for poetry is that it's not prose. One of the best definitions for prose is that it's not poetry. But we'll try to get a little bit more specific. Definition of prose is that it is written or spoken language in its ordinary, everyday form. Okay? I'm speaking right now in prose. Okay? Poetry, though, is something else. And so how do we know when we're reading poetry? You've already read poetry. What is one way that you know when someone's reading a poem that, that's a poem, not prose? This is the interactive portion of the presentation.
It could rhyme.
It could rhyme, absolutely. Now, we could, in prose, sort of rhyme, right? I'm a poet, but I didn't know it, but then you'd sound just like a jerk, right? Come on, pretty stupid. So rhyming can sometimes do that.
It has like a rhythm.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Sort of has this pattern or this rhythm to it, this beat to it. Good. How else do we know we're reading poetry?
I just use the meter.
Yeah, meter. Use the actual terminology of that. It's got a meter to it. Prose can, but oftentimes doesn't have a real specific rhythm or meter to it. Good. Anything else that we know of how we know we're reading a poem?